Alright, greetings gamers, Niggle here. I'm shooting this video because I recently saw two videos that motivated me to make my own, and those two videos were My Life in Gaming's excuse me, Analog Frontiers Volume 2, and Bob from Retro RGB just put out a video about the PVM-BVM alternative, and the alternative is using computer monitors to kind of get a similar image you can get out of PVMs and BVMs. Now Bob's video seemed to me to be kind of geared at, showing an alternative to PVMs and BVMs, and then the Analog Frontiers 2, that got me thinking about, preserving these things and trying to get these monitors before they're gone. And I've been collecting PVMs and I started collecting PVMs and BVMs back in about 2014, and I was getting them for free. I was working in a hospital, and I got these two PVMs you can see in the image here. I got one for free, and the other one I had to buy the surgical department some pizza, and that was it. And I picked up a couple others too, and that's dried up. Like, you can't find these anymore for free. That day's come and gone. And when that started happening, I started looking into alternatives, other things to game on, and I found these consumer grade TVs. I've been getting these for about 2 years now. So you got a JVC D-Series over there, and you got a Sony, basically a Sony Wega over here. Both are consumer grade North American TVs with component on the back, and I use a transcoder to get RGB into these things. And anyways, I wanted to do this video because these TVs are becoming scarce. I started collecting and I mean the TVs, the large consumer grades, like these D-Series and these Wegas. When I first started picking them up like 2 years ago, any day of the week I'd find one on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and now it's going like a month till I'll see one, and they're usually not the best of the best picks. So I wanted to do a video kind of comparing PVMs, BVMs, the JVC D and the Sony Wega, and I'm not gonna come out and be like, this is the best one, but I'm gonna, I have my personal favorites. And one thing I've noticed is, everybody has their own personal favorites. Like yesterday I was on Reddit talking to a guy who he likes playing on bubble tubes with composite, and he's got a lot of TVs seen PVMs, and that's just how he likes to play. And I talked to another guy, he likes gaming on HD TVs. Me personally, I like these flat screen Sonys and these JVC D-Series consumer grades. I prefer them over the PVMs and BVMs, and that's really just because of the large screen. Like, I wish I could get a 36-inch BVM, but I don't even think they make one, and if they did, I wouldn't be able to afford it. So I'm hoping by making this video I might maybe talk a couple guys into looking for these large consumer TVs instead of, I talk to a lot of people on Reddit that are, I want to get a PVM, I want to get a BVM, and that's great. But if you can get one for a reasonable price, but you might want to try looking for one of these consumer grades and getting a transcoder, because you can get RGB out of consumer grade TVs. I guess that's something I should talk about right now. All of these TVs and monitors you're looking at in this image here are taking RGB, except for the exception of the Olympus. That's the little one next to the D-Series. I got a PS2 hooked up with component on that right now. It will take RGB, but just out of convenience, it's hooked up with component. But all of them will take RGB. And for me, I just like gaming on RGB. I don't like composite. This video looks good, but RGB component looks better. So if you're like me, and I know a lot of gamers are, they really want RGB, you can get an RGB monitor, or you can go and find a consumer grade and get a transcoder. So I'll kind of show you what a transcoder is right here, if you don't know what it is already. So there's two transcoders I know of that take RGB on one end and the output component, and that's the shiny bow and then the retro tank. This one's a shiny bow. I mean, there's not much to say. You plug RGB SCART in one end, and you plug your component in the other end and you get it power. This one has its own power cord. The RetroTink, it's got like a micro USB and then a USB on the other end, and you just plug it in to any USB thing. And they both work virtually the same. There's no input lag. There's no video quality loss. I mean, you're getting RGB quality out of your consumer grade TV with one of these. They run around 80 bucks shipped. And I'm just gonna walk over here and show you the RetroTink. I got one of those too. I prefer the RetroTink because Mike Chi makes them, and oh man, it's too dark to see this thing. Let me hold it up. Mike Chi makes them. He's a really cool dude. I've had some dealings with him in the past, and I just like giving him my money. I don't know who gets the money from the shiny bow. And then one little detail on these is the power cord on this is just more convenient, because I got this guy hooked up to my computer, like my Sony Wega here is hooked up to my computer. So I just plug the power just straight into the computer, and it doesn't take up an outlet. Alright, before we move on, I wanted to mention that the transcoder that I was referring to as the RetroTink is actually called RGB to comp, and the brand is RetroTink. So anyways, how this is going to go is I'm going to start off by kind of explaining the strengths and weaknesses of this Olympus 203 over here. And then I'm going to talk about this PVM-20M2, oh I'm sorry, this is my PVM-2030. And then I'm going to talk about this BVM-1911. And then we'll do the Sony Wega. And then we'll do the D-Series. And we're going to have a guest appearance by a Mitsubishi 40-inch consumer grade that I was able to get recently. And I'll show that at the end. Alright, so this is the Olympus 203, OEV203. It's a rebranded Sony PVM-20M2 MDU. Basically the same as the PVM, just made for medical, rebranded. Let me get a little closer here. So this was the first PVM I ever picked up, and it's got RGB and component, and it has 2 slots on the back. That's the best thing about this monitor, is it's really convenient. It has 2 slots for RGB and component. It also has S-Video and composite. So if you got 2 systems, it's easy to plug them in, and it'll take component or RGB. Not all PVMs will. It's got a soft image for a PVM. It's not that sharp. In fact, I had a Sony Wega KV32 FV310 that was just as sharp, a consumer grade that was just as sharp as this PVM. Now, the Sony Wegas I have now are not quite as sharp as this, but they're very close to this. So to me, that's kind of a mark against it. I like my monitors as sharp as possible, and this one just isn't that. I mean, of course it is sharp. It's sharper than almost every consumer grade you're going to find. The only one that I found that comes close or is comparable is the Sony Wega, the FV300 series. So yeah, what else to say about it? It's not that heavy. It's convenient to pick up and carry. It's not that big. It's not that deep. If I'm going to take a monitor somewhere, like I've taken these to people's houses before, you know, I actually took this one camping once, and this is the one I take if I'm going to go places, because it's just easy to lift, and it's not that big. It's easy to get around. We got the Olympus OEV203 right here with the grid pattern. I wanted to show you that its geometry is basically flawless, which is one of its strengths. This particular monitor was they called it the portable monitor in the hospital where I got it. So when they went portable to go do it was an endoscopy monitor. They were doing some butt scopes with it. But when they would go upstairs, they would take this, which wasn't as common as them doing procedures in the department. so it didn't get much use. And I'm thinking that's why its geometry is so good. It's probably got very low hours on it, and its convergence is about perfect too. So this is the PVM-2030, and I just love these glowing buttons it's got on it. They look so cool. This monitor is just cool looking in general. Let's see if I can get some more light on it and show you guys. Yeah, maybe like at this angle here. So it's black. It's not like one of the, like the BVM's ugly as sin. I mean, it's got its own charm to it. There's the BVM down there. But it looks, this thing looks industrial, whereas this looks like something you can actually, you know, like a TV you could put on your counter and your wife won't lose her shit, you know. It looks pretty good. So that's one of its strengths. It doesn't have S-video. It has composite, but the composite I don't believe has a comb filter, and composite on this thing looks terrible, whereas composite on this BVM looks freaking amazing. It has like a digital, honestly I don't know, it has a really good comb filter. I don't know the details of it, but this one does not. But it does have RGB, and this RGB is considerably sharper than the OEV203. Maybe considerable is the wrong word. It's a step up, which is interesting because it's rated at 540 TV lines, whereas the Olympus 203 is rated at 600 TV lines. But this is sharper. The colors are more vibrant, and it's a sharper image. And it's not just this one. I had another PVM-2030, and you know, I've seen pictures online of, you know, both this PVM and that OEV203, and it's, in general, those monitors, the OEV203s, are not as sharp as these PVM-2030s. And these, from what I've seen, the PVM-2030 and the Olympus OEV203 are like probably the most common PVMs out there you can get. So this one is less convenient. It has a weird proprietary plug on the back. I mean, when I first got the OEV203, it was in storage at the hospital, and this was in there too, and the guy's like, hey, you want these? And I passed on this one because it had that weird input on the back, and this one the guy said was newer, the OEV203. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with two monitors? Which is funny because now I got all kinds of them. But I saw a Phone Dork video where he was showing this off and said, you got to get a proprietary plug to get RGB out of it, but you can get RGB. So I went back and got this, picked this up for free. And I love this monitor when I got it. It just looks better. So it's a 2030. 20 stands for the size of the screen, but I measured it before, and honestly I believe it is larger than 20 inches. This might be 21 inches. And that's a common thing. Like this BVM-1911 down here is a 19-inch screen, and it's kind of the predecessor to the BVM-20 F1U, and the BVM-20 F1U, which says it's 20 inches, is really a 19-inch monitor. So the sizing isn't always exact on these guys. It might be an inch off sometimes. I think the 203 is a true 20-inch. This one's more like 21 inches. So it's a little bigger than the 203, which I like, and it's sharper. So I gamed on this for a long time until I got my BVM-1911, which I'll show right now. So this is the BVM-1911, and this is the only monitor TV I have that I really paid any money for. It's I paid $250 for it, and at the time I thought that was a decent fair trade. It has 40,000 hours on it, so that's a bit of hours, and it has lost some of the color isn't the best on it. Like, I got to turn the contrast all the way up, which is something you'll notice. Turn the contrast all the way up on it, otherwise the image will get dim. I mean, it doesn't really come across in video, but that's something you got to do when something's got high hours on it. But I mean, it is just so sharp. There's nothing like it. Like, this looks considerably better than the PVMs. It's a 900 TV line. It's rated at 900 TV lines. It has this cool pull-out door here, and you can adjust the convergence by turning these pots in here, and it has kind of instructions on how to do that. And then one of the strengths of this is if you're playing, like when you play like a SNES game and then you go to Genesis, the screen, let me pull this up, the screen is, you'll have to adjust the center of it. So I can come over here, this is H center, you can adjust geometry by turning these pots. Let me just pull the screen up here so you can see what happens when I turn these pots. H center. See, I can move the screen over like that. I'm just turning the screwdriver here and it'll move the screen, which is really convenient when you're going from system to system, because the screen will be like a little to the left on like SNES and then a little to the right on Genesis, and I can do this. You can also make the size, the vertical size and horizontal size bigger by making adjustments in this drawer here. So you got H center, V center, you got some geometry to fix. Yeah, see, there's the width and the height. This monitor accepts RGB and component, and like I said, it has a really good comb filter, so it'll make composite look really good too if you want to play composite. Let me pull up a grid pattern on it. So here's a grid pattern on the PVM-2030, and it's pretty good. There's a little bit of bowing right here on the side. You can kind of see a little bit of bowing, but it's quite well. Looking at it now, I really don't see any convergence issues. It's dialed in pretty good. And I don't have to turn the brightness or contrast up on it, so to me that means the tube is still really strong. Something. Oh yeah, so adjusting the geometry on this is a pain. This is an inconvenient monitor. Like I was saying, it doesn't have component. You need a funky plug to get RGB out of it, and to adjust the geometry you have to open it up and turn pots inside of it, instead of, you know, compared to the BVM down here, where it's just right there in the door, which is super convenient. And then this one has an on-screen display, you know, a service menu for adjusting geometry and stuff. This one you have to open. Like, I don't mind turning a screwdriver to turn pots. Like, I actually prefer it on this BVM. I think it's more convenient than pushing a bunch of buttons on a service menu. But I don't like having to open this up. So actually what I'm going to do in the next couple weeks is I'm going to come over here on the side here. There's a circuit board in there, and I'm going to just cut this out right here. I'm going to cut this plastic out and make it really clean cut, and then put like a hinge on here or something and make this detachable so I can pop it off and then just turn a screwdriver to adjust the pots. But as it stands, and how, you know, most people probably aren't going to want to do that, you know, adjusting the geometry on this is somewhat inconvenient. So here's a grid pattern. One of the cool things about this is it's got its own built-in grid pattern. See right there, it says crosshatch. Push that, pulls up its own grid. Now looking at it, I can see there's a color purity issue on the top left there. It might just need to be degaussed, so let's do that right now. No, that didn't do it. Maybe my convergence is off in the corners here. You can see the red and the green up there. Excuse me, red and blue. Might need to adjust it. And you can see down in the corner down here, I don't know if it's coming across, but the convergence is off a little bit. The geometry's pretty much perfect on it. Pretty much perfect. I guess you can't really say that. It's a little bit off, but it's excellent. Alright, so this is the Sony Wega. It's actually not a Wega model. Wega is kind of a generic term people use for the into generation CRTs made by Sony with the flat panels. This one, they usually say Wega on the top left. This one actually says Trinitron. I don't know what's up with that, but it's a consumer grade 36-inch Sony, and it's called a KV36FV15. So this is hooked up to my computer. It's one of the cool things about having one of these big 36s is if you try to hook up your computer to one of those little guys, it's hard to read the text because it's putting out I'm watching this in 480i. A lot of computer monitors, you're doing like a lot higher resolution. But if you have a 36-inch TV, it's alright that it doesn't have a high resolution because it's so big. Like, you can still read all the text on it. Like, pull up the side here. See if we can zoom in on that. Like, you can still read everything. And I use this as my general media station. I love watching YouTube on here. I got like a AVGM pulled up. I love watching YouTubes on here. It looks great. Looks better than a flat panel in my opinion. Watching movies on here is just awesome. I got RoboCop right here. One of the cool things about watching on here is with VLC you can kind of crop the image. 4:3 looks great, but it cuts a little too much off for me, so I tend to do something like 16:9, 16:10, 16:9, something in there. 16:10 looks better in this one, but that's the cool thing about VLC is you got options. So I love watching movies on here, and of course playing video games. Let's get out of here, pull up some video games. So I got this hooked up, CRTEMUDRIVER, from my computer. That's like a software program that lets my computer put out a 15 kilohertz signal that these standard def TVs can use. It's kind of a pain to set up, and there's some hardware involved, but once it's set up, it works great. And when you couple CRTEMUDRIVER with a wired controller on a CRT with RetroArch here, you got something really good. Let's see here. So like something you can do, which one's this? Street Fighter 2. With RetroArch is you can use run-ahead latency reduction. So like right now, I got this set up latency. With Street Fighter 2, I'm removing 3 frames of lag. This arcade game has 3 frames of lag built in, and you can remove those. And my emulator is probably only putting in about a frame or 2 of lag. So I'm actually playing Hyper Street Fighter 2 here on an emulator with less lag than an arcade board. There's still variable lag, but I can tell you, like, I can play this better. I'm a better player on this than I am playing on an arcade board because there's actually less lag. I got more response time. Like, I can pull off stuff on here I normally can't pull off. Anyways, like, let's see if we can zoom in and get a good picture of these scan lines. So the sharpness of the screen, it's of course not as sharp as a PVM. This FV15 isn't as sharp as like a KV32 FV300. The 300 series are probably the best consumer grade Sonys. This one isn't as sharp, but it's still really good. It's just, you know, a step down from a PVM, a small step though. and I'll take that small step down in sharpness to get a big old screen that I can, you know, hook up to my computer. So what else to say about this? One more thing I wanted to mention is you can read comic books on these big screens on your computer, which, you know, not everybody's into comics, but if you are, it's a lot of fun reading these sitting in your bed and reading a comic on a ginormous screen. Like, you can't do this on the BVM. Like, the text is just too small. Like, I'm looking at the screen and like you can't really read it, but I can tell you it's fine. Like for me sitting here, like it doesn't come across on the camera very good. Maybe I can zoom in. But yeah, you can read it, man. Like, you can read the text. Here's something else that's a lot more fun. Let me turn this down. Playing these gun con games on here is a lot more fun on these big screens than it is on a small PVM, BVM. Like, I can get across the screen and play this. Like, excuse me, across the room and play this game. And you can get 2 players on here. This is, I mean, it's like being in an arcade. Like, it looks like some poverty gaming when I'm watching people play on like a little 20-inch screen, trying to play a gun con game. How about fast forward through this? Shoot screen, there we go. It's kind of, there's some stuff involved getting a gun con to work on one of these screens. One thing I will say, I feel like it needs its own video, like trying to get these gun con games to work. You got to turn the brightness in picture all the way up, or you got to be super close to the screen with your gun, which is no fun. If you want to move like 6 feet away, 8 feet away with the gun, you got to have the brightness and picture turned all the way up. I don't know why that is. That just is what it is. But yeah, man, like this is like the best way I think to play these gun con games, or just any kind of gun game, is with a large screen. So here's a grid pattern pulled up on my Sony consumer grade 36 kV FV15, and that's one thing people will poo-poo on these flat screen Sony consumer grades, is that they have bad geometry. I have 3 of the teen series of these Sony flat panels, like 13, like KVFV13 or KVFV15s, and all 3 of them just, you know, right when I picked them up, had good geometry. To me, this is good geometry. Like, you can see the top left corner there is a little jacked, but when you're gaming and watching movies, you don't really notice that, especially in a corner. What happens a lot on them, not on just these flat panels, is you'll see it like this, and then it bows in the middle here. There'll be a big bow here, and sometimes that is so horrendous that I can't even use the TV. Like, you can fix some of them. You can like go in and adjust the yoke, and you can try recapping them. But some of them are just so bad I don't even mess with them. But all these teen FV13s and 15s have had good geometry for me. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally playable. Alright, so on the back of the flat panel Sonys, they're all going to say KV. And then the next number is the size of the tube. You got 32s, 27s, and 36s mostly, in America anyways. And then there's FSs and there's FVs. The FVs were the superior models, although the differences are negligible for gaming and watching movies. nowadays. It's like stuff like picture-in-picture and add-ons like that. The tubes are going to be the same. The quality is going to be the same. FS and FV are fine. In my opinion, there's not really a viable difference between the two. And then you got the numbers. So there's 100 series, there's a teen series, a 200 series, and 300 series. Anything in the 100 series are all going to be very similar to one another. FS 120s, FS 100, whatever. And then same goes for the 300 series. FV 300, FV 310. I mean, they'll have little differences between them. Like I think the 310 has 2 components, and then the 300 only has 1 component, but the tubes are similar. And while we're talking about 300s, I had one once, and then I did a recap on it, and it never started again. I don't want to talk about it. But the 300s are, in my opinion, the best TVs, monitors you can get for anything. They're big, and the TV line count on them, in my opinion, is similar to my PVM-20 MDU. It's like similar to a low-end PVM. They're very high quality. Now these 100s and FV15s, FV17s, they're not as sharp, but they're still good. Now, alright, so this is the JVC D-Series. This one's a 36. I think it's labeled let's say 36 D303. And I got this about a month ago. I got 2 of these now. I found 2 like right at the same time. I was looking for one for like a year, and just none popped up in my area. And then I found 2 at once. And I've had a JVC iArt before, and I didn't like it at all. The JVC iArt is supposed to be a high-end JVC, and it has a flat screen like the Sony Wegas do. Now this D-Series doesn't. It has a curved screen. And I prefer the flat screens, but that JVC iArt had a really bad screen door pattern. Like you could see the mask of the tube just as well as you could see the scan lines. It had like black lines vertically just as strong as it did having horizontal scan lines, and I just couldn't stand the look of it. And this D-Series doesn't have that. It's got nice scan lines. It's not as sharp as the Sony Wegas, but there's something about it. It just kind of glows. I can't even really put words on it, you know, but I actually like playing 240p gaming on this more than I do on my Sony Wega, I think, even though it's not as sharp. It's got something about it. I'm going to turn the lights off here, and let's see, we'll try and show the screen a little better. So of course this takes component. Like I said, they all take component. And it's 36. It's a big bubble on it. It's a 36-inch screen with a huge, like the curve of the screen on this is super pronounced. I got a Mitsubishi with the bubble screen too, but the bubble screen on that Mitsubishi isn't as pronounced as on this. This one's really pronounced. I don't really care for the curved screen, but you know, it is what it is. The geometry on it's good. This is the only one I can't really show you guys the geometry on right now. I mean, I'm just kind of lazy. I don't feel like hooking another system up. I got the PS1 hooked up to it, and I don't have any way to display a grid pattern with the PS1 as far as I know. But it has good geometry. Alright, this is the last TV I was going to show you guys. And you're probably not going to find this out in the wild, and that's kind of the point of this video, is to, you know, show those consumer grade TVs, the D-Series and the Wegas, that you can still go find out in the wild and have a really good time with. I mean, I'm picking them up for free or for 20 bucks. I actually paid 50 for this, and this is a Mitsubishi 4809. It's the last consumer grade TV they made. CRT TV they made, and it's 40 inches. It's big, and it was over $3,000 when it was brand new. It does take component. It is the only consumer grade Mitsubishi I know of that takes component. And I knew that Mitsubishi made some really quality large CRTs, so I've been on the lookout for one. It says Diamond Series right there. I've been on the lookout for one for about 8 months now, until I found this. And it's a little bit underwhelming. Like, the sharp, it's a little soft. Kind of like the D-Series, but it lacks the charm of the D-Series. It's still a really good TV. Movies look great on it. They actually look better than the D. I did a whole video on this thing a couple days ago, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. And like I said, you're probably no one's gonna find this, but that brings something up. Let me hit pause here. It brings something up. Is there's other TVs besides the D-Series and the Sony Wegas that are quality consumer grade TVs. Like, if you found this, like, you'd be happy playing this for a while, trust me. You'd be okay with this. There's also Panasonic Taos I've heard of, and Toshiba has a high-end line. I don't have any experience with the Taos or the Toshibas, so I can't really speak of them. And I've heard other ones, like people have told me about Sharps that they really like weird little, you know, things produced with like a, what do you call it, like where they didn't make too many of them. It's just one shots of like certain brands made some other TVs that people really like. So this kind of falls into that category. Like, just be on the lookout for stuff like this. There's oddballs out there that are also really good choices. Here's a grip pattern pulled up on the Mitsubishi Diamond Series. It's got excellent geometry. I just wanted to pull this up to demonstrate it. Alright, so I wanted to give some final thoughts and kind of show off the BVM-1911. I feel like I didn't demonstrate the awesome glory of its scan lines properly. Like I said, I love my flat screens, Sony, my consumer grade, and I love those big screens, but there's just definitely something to be said for how awesome these 900 line BVMs look. Like, the step up and down from a PVM to one of those consumer grades isn't a very big step. But the step from a PVM to one of these 900 line BVMs is pretty big. Like, these have a completely different look to them. And I love it. I love how sharp it looks. Like, I have my BVM usually hooked up to all my the consoles I play most often, like Genesis, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. What else? I got PlayStation 1 hooked up too, I think. PlayStation 1 moves around a bit, but... And then I got like the JVC kind of just sitting around in case I want to hook something up to it. And then my computer is hooked up for like arcade games and all the other stuff I showed you, and GunCon games for my large screen. And sometimes I'll plug one of my PVMs in here just because what the hell, why not? Yeah, that's pretty much... I can't stand that sound. We're gonna have to get rid of that. It's pretty much all I gotta say. Go out there and get these consumer grade TVs before they're gone. Okay guys, just wanted to show you the little Trinitron graveyard I've noticed back here. I ride my bike here on Mondays. I go by this spot here on the way to the skate park. I always see some CRTs here. It just breaks my heart. I mean, I don't know what this guy is, but you read right there? This is a Trinitron flat panel. Looks about like 32 inches. It's just dead. Sucker's dead. Here's another fallen soldier. Like, just imagine these were BVMs back here. You know, gamers would be losing their biscuit, but Nobody cares about these. And they're not long for the world, man. I see them out here like this all the time.